You're watching the Segpay News Network. Today we're talking with Brad Mitchell, founder and president of MojoHost. Hello again, it's Mark Pettit in the Segpay studio here in the United States. Today we're talking web hosting, and our special guest is Brad Mitchell. He is the founder and president of MojoHost. So Brad, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
All right, let's step back, Brad. 26 years in business, which is amazing. First of all, congratulations. What need did you see in the marketplace, and how did you address that?
I love this question. You want to know why? I was a young man and broke.
Okay.
When I started, did I have a vision for what MojoHost is today? Not exactly. There were a lot of web hosts competing for this vertical markets business, and a few years into doing this is when it got real serious. And for me, the need that I saw was to approach it with more flexibility so that business owners could be more dynamic and have their needs met quicker and faster. And then also at MojoHost, we've always focused on giving a very boutique level of service, so really high-touch customer support. That's ultimately where we settled in on.
So over those 26 years, Brad, how have things changed in the hosting business and for your customers?
Well, so much. About every 5 years is a whole different generation of business owners on the internet. And so going back that far in history, really, it's magnitudes of difference. When I first started, there was no video on the internet. I remember it was a huge deal for me when it was about 2004, 2005, when really short video clips, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, started getting put online for previews and trailers and free clips. That was, very much the point where I had to increase our connectivity from, a gigabit to, I think back then it would have been like 10 gigabit size, to go from serving hundreds of megabits to gigabits to what eventually became hundreds of gigabits, of course. So what we did was we moved the business. We had to move it from Michigan, which is where we were founded, and it was only just 5 years ago that while we still continue to be global, that we built a data center here.
You work with a lot of merchants in the high risk space. How did you get into that niche, Brad?
Well, I don't think it was something that I had given so much thought or research to when I was younger. To be honest, what had happened for me is before this career and journey, I was in medical field. I quit my day job and I started looking for businesses for sale, and one thing led to another, and it just ended up being, in the adult entertainment space.
Let's talk about the challenges that high-risk merchants face that other merchants don't. Can you kind of walk us through what that landscape is like?
Sure. Nobody would be more familiar with the challenges that merchants would have than Segpay, of course, right? But, as web hosts, we see some things too. But our merchants are very much trying to protect their content. So there's a lot of things that they have to do to protect their copyrights and their trademarks and security. And we've always taken an approach here when it comes to server security of like deny everything and then, whitelist and filter to let in good traffic, rather than what most web hosts and clouds do, which is more of a hands-off approach where ports may be open and things of that nature.
And you sort of taken a different approach, right, to having your owned infrastructure, right, versus cloud. You have the physical location.
Yeah, we do. I had always evaluated whether or not I wanted to build and own my own data center. And then this is what we did starting in 2019, 2020. And I'm glad that I did, because I think we continue to see and face things such as banking discrimination. I think even as a web host, which is very diverse with its clients, I know that these are things that even I've experienced. And it's not that much of a stretch to imagine high-risk merchants being deplatformed from other clouds and other web hosts. We certainly see it all the time with small and medium-sized web hosts uninviting adult entertainment customers, just as sometimes website operators get uninvited from banks, they get uninvited from web hosts too. But I think it really ended up being sort of fortuitous and great timing, me building this, because now we've got one more place in the world where our merchants and our flock are safe from discrimination in those ways. So our clouds and all of these other things, they're all on wholly owned infrastructure.
It seems to me, Brad, that the high-risk space in adults particularly is highly regulated, almost to overkill, you know? Why do you think it's such a taboo topic for politicians and people who don't quite understand the space?
Well, I would take a step back and say, we know the real truth that all of our merchants and our relationships in our community, we're all trying to accomplish the same things. We really all do want to, of course, protect children. And adults has always been highly regulated. There's always been a very long list of established laws and regulations, whether they're by the banks or Visa, MasterCard or federal government or individual states. We've always been highly regulated. It's a very slippery slope when you start regulating things such as free speech. And sadly, that's a hill that we're going to continue to live on.
Let's talk about your relationship with Segpay. How did you all get connected and how do you work together?
Sure. So I feel like our companies have a lot in common. We are fanatical about loving our customers and treating them well. And Segpay is just one of those companies that I've observed that starting even with its own staff, it treats them just like family, just like their customers. And that's something that's near and dear to me that means a lot at MojoHost. So I've always felt like in that way, we're kindred spirits. And I've had long-term friendships with a lot of, Segpay's key employees. It's so much better when you can work together as a team with other vendors that are serving the clients. It saves everybody time and headaches. It lessens the learning curve, time to market, technical troubleshooting. When you work as well together as a company like Segpay and MojoHost, we can take the client out of the middle of the conversation even, and then that way they're not the monkey in the middle between two different support ticket systems, and it just allows us to be so much better at how we integrate and deliver service to them. It's a total win.
Compliance is such a delicate subject, right? But SegPay makes it a focus, and while it's harder on the merchant on the front end, it's better on the back end that you don't get deplatformed or debanked. Do you feel the same way?
I do, and I like that SegPay is so particular about making sure that business is done right, because it's really the only way to protect the longevity and all of the business opportunity for the entire community is by working with high enough and good enough standards that we can, in as many ways as possible, be beyond reproach. That by leading by example, there's nothing sensational to report on. I think SegPay takes an approach much like MojoHost, where we are trying, to be ahead of the pack and to do things the right way and to feel good about the business that we're doing. We want to take care of our merchants, and of course, every company likes to make money, but we're also very in tune with everything that's compliance related. I know, like, as a web host, we've got other challenges here too. Our SOC 2, Type 2 compliance and auditing. That's actually going to become a full-time role here at my company soon because it's very important. It's certainly very important to us.
So pull out your crystal ball. Tell us what are we going to see in the future? What's coming?
Well, I think as we're seeing in all other industries, there's now everybody's talking about AI, right? Here's what I think we'll continue to see. We're certainly going to see new forms of entertainment developing using these technologies. So I think that's very exciting. I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities using AI, and at MojoHost we now have Mojo AI. It's something we've got some products in the space and GPUs for merchants to help accomplish all of their new processing needs. So certainly lots of new entertainment stuff, things like AI boyfriend, girlfriend experience site. I think we're going to continue to see the impact on workflows, policies, procedures, efficiencies at how companies are run, which will continue to impact how many people need to be employed to get how much work done. So I think it seems very clear that tasks such as customer service might become more enhanced and automated and perhaps more efficient. I think we're all going to be very challenged with keeping up to deep fakes or just fakes of things and real news and fake news. And this is going to be such a challenge for everybody because even so many things generated with AI are hard to detect, but certainly we'll evolve and find our way through it.
Well, one thing that's been around forever is fraud and mitigation, detection. Where do you see us heading?
It's so sophisticated. Even in MojoHost, we have a problem with that. We used to talk about things like friendly fraud, and now, it's just so layered with how sophisticated some of these networks must be. At MojoHost, we stay more focused on the security of our customers' account, access to their accounts, support ticket systems, to try to guard, of course, their identity and access to critical systems and things that can affect their hosting environment. I'm always trying to also help coach merchants so that they truly understand, like, there's a reason why the rates are what they are in the high risk business. And you just can't skip the hard work. It's hard work. And there's a reason that it has to cost what it does. It's not because the margins are higher. It's because this is the fragility and detailed nature of this business and online commerce that's global in all geos, all the time, 24/7, is so much more sophisticated. And merchants really need the sophistication that a Segpay has to manage like the whole portfolio of compliance.
And you can't just say, I want to do business internationally. It's
Mm-mm.
it's a process. I mean,
Such
how do you help merchants understand how difficult it is to do cross-border selling?
Well, so, from our hosting perspective, there's infrastructure tools that we help merchants and website owners to use that give them better performance in all of the different global geos. So using smart technologies like the Global Content Delivery Network will help a merchant to deliver images and video faster in the farther corners of the world. And so, we counsel more from a perspective on performance and then performance relative to where are their customers segmented. Most of the business is North America and Western Europe that we transact for, because in many other areas of the world, it's just smaller populations, or perhaps it's illegal or harder to access using the available financial systems.
Peer-to-peer, all sorts of payments out there these days.
Definitely.
Brad, as we wrap up here, what advice would you give companies just starting out, or wanting to navigate these difficult waters?
So the advice that I always start with is, especially when it comes to someone that's entrepreneurial and they've got an idea, is only spend what you can afford to lose. It's very easy to spend money. It's very hard to make it back. So in each of these little crossroads that you have when you're making those choices, I think you need to, my advice would be, like, zoom out a little bit and see, like, what's your runway? How much time and money can you give without endangering, your budgets, to try to figure something out? So, like, I would usually even recommend, before someone goes whole hog into, say, building and developing a new site, maybe they experiment with building a free site first, or becoming an affiliate, and promoting other sites. Of course, the dynamics of these things are now changing with age verification. So therein lies, new challenges also. But within new challenges, there's always new opportunities.
So test the treacherous waters. Don't just dive in head first,
I,
right?
I think so. And then I think, become part of the community. Resources like what you're developing here with these interviews, and over at xbiz.net and these other places where members of the community can learn from one another and network, are excellent. And then, having relationships, like, why would you choose, say, Segpay or MojoHost or another provider? Well, it's because you can pick up the phone and you can talk to me or Natalie that works for me, or you can, say, talk to Christy over at Segpay. And anything else that a merchant could ever want to get connected to, they are now one person removed. So when you develop these friendships, these relationships with providers that are part of the industry, you're doing two things. One, you're shortcutting your learning curve, because all of a sudden you have instant access. People that have been doing this for 5 to 25 years, that no other people can help you understand reputational questions that you might have about other service providers, that can help you business network. But the other thing that you're doing is you're supporting the community by working within it. So when it comes to supporting the industry's charities, things like the Free Speech Coalition or the ASACP or Pineapple Support, I think it's really important to patronize good members of our community that are also supporting the community and giving back with education too, because it's short-sighted, I think, to go out and seek to use vendors that aren't working for the betterment of all of us as a group and a community.
There you go. Brad Mitchell, founder, president of MojoHost, thank you so much for your time today. We really enjoyed having you on the program, and we intend to bring you more great interviews just like this one as we move forward on the Segpay News Network.
Thanks so much, Mark.